Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV, a show for loyalty marketing professionals. I'm Paula Thomas, the founder and CEO of Let's Talk Loyalty and Loyalty TV, where we feature insightful conversations with loyalty professionals from the world's leading brands. Today's episode is hosted by Carly Neubauer, Managing Director of Elevate Loyalty, an Australian-based company specialising in loyalty and incentive services. Carly is also the Managing Director of OneTap Group, a UK-based company providing loyalty payment services. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Carly Neubauer, Managing Director of Elevate Loyalty and OneTap Group. Today, I'm lucky enough to introduce two leading strategists in loyalty from Mando Connect, and we are discussing the latest loyalty white paper conducted across Europe. Charlie Hills is the Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of Mando Connect, WPP's Specialist Partnerships, Loyalty, Promotions and Rewards Agency. James Davies is the Senior Strategist and Analyst with specialisms in loyalty, reward and analytics, partnership strategy and consumer insight. Together, they've worked with YouGov and a team of European loyalty experts to produce the third edition of Understanding Loyalty in Europe, the white paper, which explores membership, appeal and impact across 24 European markets. It's the leading study of its kind. Hi, Charlie and James, and welcome to Let's Talk Loyalty TV. Although I think, to be honest, Charlie, you're a host of this show, so really it's a welcome back, I think is more apt. And I love that you're a guest just for something different today. And a big welcome to you, James.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's really exciting to be here today and really nice to be on this side of the questions.
Yeah, I'm loving it. And James, so good to meet you and have you on here to chat with us about the new white paper.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. It's always a really exciting opportunity to be able to kind of speak on these kind of things. So yeah, happy to be on.
Awesome. So we do need to keep up with tradition though, and then we'll get to your fabulous new white paper. First question that we ask every guest, and this time, Charlie, you're on that side. Which is your favourite non-fiction business or loyalty related book?
It's a really good question. I love asking it as well. I'm building up quite a nice library, and some of my guests on my episodes have done some extraordinary things, from like really highbrow poetry right the way through to kind of, loyalty 101 books. So I thought I'd bring something a little bit different today. So lots of people know that I'm a sort of super loyalty data nerd. And so I brought along, I don't know if you can see it because of the blur, but Knowledge is Beautiful. Is one of my favorite books, and it's a fabulous book with loads of really exciting ideas for infographics and how to produce data and really tell stories through insights. So that's been a kind of a favorite of mine for many years.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're right, as the host, it's hard to find new ones. Our guests bring some fabulous books along, that's for sure. And James, what about yourself?
Mine's quite an old one. It's something I read probably about 10 years ago. Now it's 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And it's actually a new business book and a startup book, more so than a loyalty one. And I think the kind of the central premise is around the fact that you should really aim to kind of create something entirely new, whether it's a new business, a loyalty program, whatever it is, rather than trying to make kind of incremental improvements on whatever's in the market already. So it's something which has kind of stuck with me over that time, and yeah, something which I think is pretty valuable in loyalty programs as well.
Differentiate yourself in market if possible and where possible, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And the second question we always ask guests, and I'm super keen to hear this one, especially from loyalty professionals. Favorite loyalty program, Charlie?
I got so many, and I've just come back from holiday as well. So I was just going through duty free, and a good sort of friend and work colleague of mine has just launched the new Volta loyalty program, which I would really recommend checking out. It was all over duty free and all over all the service stations in France as we were driving through on this sort of epic 14-hour journey where I was curled up effectively in the boot of my friend's car. So there's some brilliant programs out there at the moment. I know we're going to talk about the ones in the white paper shortly, so I won't choose any of those, but please don't be upset, people. My favorite loyalty program, and I think the one I talk about the most. I like new as well, and I think it's been really interesting to see what's been happening in the British market in the dining sector and the coffee sector. I think we've seen some real innovation and explosion of new programs in that sector, and actually they've kind of ranked right up from kind of one of the smaller loyalty sectors in our British research, right the way up to kind of one of the dominant four, which is really exciting. So one of my favorite programs is the Costa Club program, and I think what I really love about this program is they realize what they've done wrong. They moved from a collecting beans program to a points program, and they sort of stood up and actually they've come back to a really cool collect your beans mechanic. They're constantly innovating it. So one of my favorite features is that it's twice as good if you demonstrate a sustainable behavior. So you can earn your free coffee twice as quickly if you use your own cup. And then they're constantly thinking ahead. So one of the other really great things they've introduced recently is the little sips device, which is where rather than having to kind of save up 10 beans to get free coffee, you can save up 2 now and claim them for a syrup or an upgrade. And I think that's a really nice kind of recognition that people are really struggling at the moment, and those little treats really matter. And it's giving people a little bit of extra value. So some really nice kind of features around sustainability and really thinking about what people need from their program, as well as all the sort of basics of a good coffee shop program, payment integration, a really good app, really good features, treats on your birthday, all that kind of stuff. They've covered the basics, but they're always trying to go one step ahead. So that's my favorite. James, I hope I haven't stolen that off you. Hope you've got a different one.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
James, what are you thinking? What's your favorite?
mine does change on a monthly basis depending on what we're seeing kind of in the market and what I think is a nice kind of fun innovation and that kind of thing. The current favorite is Marriott Bonvoy. It's a kind of program that obviously everyone's very, very familiar with. But I just love how they do both the kind of the basics very, very well. As a guest, you're getting an improved experience. The UX is amazing. And then the big stuff that they do on top of it as well, all those kind of Marriott Bonvoy moments, that kind of money can't buy activity is really, really cool as well. And I've noticed they've been doing drops recently as well. So just very intrigued to see how that goes for them and where they're going to take it from here.
So I love hearing it from people so much in the space, especially with not only your backgrounds, but the research you're doing. You're across so many programs. And let's go into that a little bit further. James, can you tell us a bit about your background? How did you end up in loyalty? What's your story?
Well, I started actually in a food subscription business, working in brand partnerships, and essentially we were using brand partnerships for both new customer acquisition but also retention. With a subscription business, obviously, loyalty is a pretty important metric to kind of keep track of and to try and get people to stay subscribed for just even 1 or 2 more kind of deliveries. So I was working there, then actually did some work with Mando, and was introduced to the agency that way, and eventually kind of moved across to join Charlie and the team about 5 or 6 years ago, where again I started working in brand partnerships mostly, and then gradually kind of transitioned towards the kind of strategy and planning team. So yeah, been immersed in the world of loyalty kind of since then.
And clearly a fabulous decision, by the way, obviously.
Yeah.
Charlie, tell us about Mando and your background and loyalty.
I was going to say, James, just remember you're on record now. I've got this on film.
We're totally recording.
I feel ancient when I tell this story. It's absolutely horrific how many years I've now been working in loyalty, but I'm exceeded my 2 decades now, which is really quite shocking. So I was really lucky. I was super unusual at university. So I went to Warwick and I did mathematics and analytics as part of an economics and international studies degree. And it was really unusual at the time to be a girl who loved public speaking, loved people, loved being out, but also really liked maths. So when I then was trying to look at my graduate programs, everyone told me I was supposed to be an accountant or an actuary. And I remember going to those programs and just going, oh, God, no, not in a million years. So I ended up in a marketing role, which I just thought was marvelous because the opportunity to get things on the shelves and actually kind of bring campaigns to life. And I loved it. And then when I look back at that with the power of hindsight, actually, loyalty has been a thread that's run run through my entire career. So I was lucky enough to start out at Boots, which is one of, the big three programs in Britain, Boots Advantage Card. And I was actually in the product development side, but I was given access to data devolution at the time, which was the sort of very basic, 20 plus years ago interface with all the ad card data. And I remember doing my first big presentation of a range review for skincare, and I'd used it all. And nobody'd ever really thought about using it in that way. And I was obviously able to look at what everybody was buying, what all the categories were doing, what ingredients were doing well, what type of customer liked different things. And it was literally all on our sort of like dial-up desktop. And I think that was the hallelujah moment for me, because I was like, well, this is really obvious, right? Because the data can help point us in the right direction. And that was brilliant. Boots loved it. And obviously from then on in, got to do all sorts of cool things, and some of the skincare ranges I made still exist. So go check out Boots Tea Tree and Witch Hazel if you're dialing in from the UK. It's one of my favourites, and ironically, given that I ended up in partnerships, a brilliant partnership of two of the best ingredients that exist for teenage skincare, and my kids now use it. So there's a lovely sort of founding kind of thing. And then what happened from that point in my career was always a sort of loyalty and partnerships thread. So I was privileged enough to work on McDonald's, one of the other kind of most amazing brands in the world, on the McDonald's Monopoly promotions. I worked with Master Foods. I then went into consultancy and got to work on O2 Priority, which was a really cool kind of partnerships fuel program and programs for Aviva. And then I think it's 8 years ago now, was given the opportunity to found an agency as part of Mando, so one of the oldest agencies within WPP, specialising in loyalty partnerships and rewards. And along with Becky Monday, my CEO, and Joe Ashdown, who's now our managing director, we literally sat round kitchen table, made up logos and thought, right, this is how we're going to do it, and how we're going to use smart data and insight to inform partnerships, rewards, and loyalty solutions. And to be honest, I was like a kid in a sweet shop. I couldn't believe that anyone was going to let us do it, let alone support us to do it. And we've gone from there. So we've got the most amazing brands that we get to work with now. So everybody from Vodafone to BMW to Mini to Lidl, TK Maxx, like some really phenomenal brands. And then we get to work with some little brands as well. And all of that kind of thread that runs through it is sort of smart data informed decisions to inform, loyalty, promotions, partnerships, and reward solutions. So it's been awesome. And there's about 30 of us now, and we've got this really fancy office in London because we get to sit in the WPP flagship. And it's been quite a journey, and I love it. I think loyalty is such an awesome area of marketing. You can really measure it, you can see the impact of it, you can build things that people love, you can experiment really quickly, and get real results really fast. So it's been a real privilege. It's very cool.
Fantastic. And this is why I always love talking to you, Charlie, because I don't know that I know many people that are just so passionate and genuinely love what they do in the same way.
Well, it's because I'm a escaped
contagious.
actuary, right? I mean, I would have obviously had a yacht and some sort of skyscraper
Always
penthouse
an
apartment
option.
in New York, which, sometimes I question my life choices. But I'm an escaped actuary. So I love it.
I'll also remember to ask you the brands you haven't worked with. It'll be much faster than the ones that you do.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
With
the
such a
joy
great
of
career. It's
I
good.
think that's the joy of being agency side, and obviously
Yeah.
I loved being client side, but I was really happy when I jumped to agency side because it gives you the opportunity. I'm such a naturally curious person, and it gives you the opportunity to work on lots of different brands across lots of different sectors. And I think that's some of the work that James and I and the team do that's the most interesting. It's like, actually, what can telecommunications loyalty learn from financial services loyalty, and what can coffee shop loyalty learn from media and entertainment loyalty? And it's that translation, I think, of those insights, because sometimes I think people forget that it's the same human being. In our British research, we know that the average Brit is a member of 6 loyalty programs. And I think people who work in loyalty forget that. They look at their competitive set, people in the same sector, but you shouldn't really. You should be looking at retail and telco and media and all the ones that your audience, sports, a really interesting sector that's been growing, to see where those big innovations are and then how you can apply them. So that's the best thing I think about being agency side. Not to mention having partnerships, because obviously we have a small number of clients, but hundreds and hundreds of brand partners that we work with. We do 500 to 1,000 partnerships a year. So you really get to know lots and lots of different types of brands and sectors really quickly.
So good. And we're really lucky today. I love this. I've got 2 strategy experts here, and take us through your white paper, because you have just about to release the Understanding Loyalty in Europe. Not your first edition though, is it? Third? Are we third now?
We are third now, yeah. So this one's
Yes,
got a teal
awesome.
cover. Yeah, it's a fabulous piece of research, and we were really privileged, I think, in our partnership with YouGov. So a little bit like the book that James was referring to earlier, we were brave when we started Connect. We did all sorts of cheeky things that I'm not sure I'd be cheeky enough to do now, to be honest. We directly approached the head of YouGov, with whom we were building an IP property kind of partnership with them, and said, look, we'll help you with all your loyalty and promotions data points if you'll help us build ourselves some fame and intellectual property as an agency. And surprisingly, they said yes. And that was the birth of kind of a big series of white papers. So we do the Understanding British Loyalty and Understanding British Promotions series that we've now been running for about 6 or 7 years, I think. And then 3 years ago, we were lucky enough, YouGov launched their global profiles tool, which is a fantastic panel that they run across multiple markets, and 24 of those markets are across Europe. And so we got cheeky again, and we said, we'd love to develop a white paper with you, looking for the first time ever at loyalty, membership appeal, and impact across 24 European markets. And it was driven purely out of irritation, which was lots and lots of global programs that we work on, treating Europe as a homogenous bunch of markets and going, well, we've got a North America strategy, a South America strategy, and then Europe we'll just kind of lump all together, and we might stick a few kind of Asian markets in there, all the same. And I was like, they're so different. Like, it's going to look so different when we do it. And YouGov were fantastic. They said, yes, absolutely. They helped us build all the data sets. And then we kind of sat back and recognized that we really needed some help. We obviously understand the British market inside out. We understand, the homogenous European market as part of our global work that we do, but we didn't know the detail of what loyalty looks like in the Czech Republic or what loyalty really looks like in Germany at a granular level. So we've built over time a community of fantastic European loyalty experts who work on the paper with us. And so we effectively create the master data up front and the master story and show how it works. We then bring the British insight, and then we've got a big community of experts who help us bring all the detail and depth into each of those markets, looking at trends, case studies, interrogating the data. Why is membership so high in some markets and others? And it's phenomenal to be part of a team, actually, and it's been such an interesting part of the journey. I know I should say the data is the most interesting part of the study for me, but actually it's the case studies and the context and the experts that I've loved, and they're all featured in the white paper. So for any of our listeners today who are interested in a particular market, go to the white paper, contact the experts on LinkedIn. They are all available to kind of help you with that granular market in understanding, which shows you why loyalty looks so different in Britain to Denmark.
Absolutely. James, in your view, do you have any particular important key takeaways, any sort of big call-outs that you saw during this?
Yeah, I mean, so as Charlie says, we've been running this this series. This is the third kind of iteration, so it's now that we can really start to see some of those trends, and actually how asking the same kind of data points around loyalty membership, loyalty appeal, and loyalty impact, how those things are changing kind of over the years, and it's been quite an interesting few years globally anyway. So actually, we're starting to see some of these kind of trends kind of come in with the cost of living crisis, all of that kind of thing, having an impact on how people are kind of really using loyalty programs and what they're valuing within them. So yeah, there is a ton of data in the white paper, and I definitely urge everyone to go and read it for themselves. But I think there's probably three kind of key takeaways that we saw this year. Firstly, around that kind of membership point, we're seeing 64% of Europeans saying they are members of a loyalty program. So the majority, really, you can see it's a really, really kind of ubiquitous tool that people are using throughout Europe at the moment. And whilst there are kind of variations across the countries, you can see the kind of the highs of Finland, where I think it's 89% of Finnish people say they're members of at least one program, right down to 27% in Turkey. So the uptake is very varied across the different countries. But when you kind of average it all out, you can see actually the majority of people are kind of members of a loyalty program. The second point, I think, is around that appeal. And again, we're just seeing that kind of trending up. People are really valuing loyalty programs and what they can do, whether that's kind of helping out with their kind of weekly shopping, whatever that is. We can see across those kind of three data points that we ask, which are whether they feel that loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers, whether they think all brands should offer them, and then finally, when they get offered the chance to join the loyalty program, do customers do it? And actually, we're seeing that kind of data just trend upwards across all three data points there. It's now 59% of people saying they think loyalty programs are a great way to reward their customers. That's up from 55% in 2024. 49% say they think every brand should offer them. Again, that's up from 42% last year. And then finally, 42% say they join loyalty programs every time they're given the chance, which again is up from 35% last year. So those kind of appeal data points are really, really kind of tracking upwards. But I think that probably the biggest and potentially most interesting for loyalty marketers really is just the impact data points that we're seeing, especially around people saying that they are spending more as a result of being a loyalty program member. We look at four different data points in this kind of category. It's whether they feel they're more loyal as a member, whether they say they're more likely to recommend friends to the loyalty to a brand if they're a member of a loyalty program, whether they feel more emotionally connected to a brand when a member of the loyalty program, and then finally whether they actually spend more. And those kind of impact metrics are trending up again. But the big one we're seeing is actually 36% of people are now saying they spend more when they're a member of the program. That's up from 29% last year. So I think it's a really, really welcome stat that hopefully is kind of will be music to everyone's ears at the moment, where everyone is really, really trying to kind of prove their value and make every kind of penny work for them. So yeah, that's a great one, and I think a really encouraging sign for us.
Yes, anyone from the loyalty industry would be very happy to hear that's got an upward trend, I imagine, of course. You
There are some
mentioned
totally
Turkey.
awesome infographics on that page as well. I'm just going to shout out, because Inspired by Knowledge is beautiful and all the great stuff on the internet. You did really ramped up the visual presentation of the data this year. And I think that's something James and the team should be really proud of.
Awesome. We need some good pictures along with it, all the stats as well. What are your takes and what are your thoughts on why the big difference between Turkey and Finland? Like, tell us a bit more about that one. There's such polar opposites in the numbers. Obviously, we've got a 64% mean. Great. Why such a difference between the two, in your opinion?
I think there's a number of kind of factors which impact how people interact with loyalty programs. You've got kind of technology, you've got how long they've kind of been around in different countries, and also where the kind of the investment is as well. So there's a number of different things which are going to impact how people feel about loyalty, whether they're kind of engaging in them. And I think we're just starting to see the kind of the variations across the different markets now. And one of the great things that we've got in the program is our kind of loyalty gauge, which really looks at all of those data points we've kind of spoken about, and kind of ranks the country by country based on their kind of net loyalty score. And so you can see just how membership changes, how the appeal changes, how the impact kind of changes. And for loyalty marketers, it's a great way just to understand a little bit more, especially if they're kind of thinking of going into different territories or thinking about how they should adjust their kind of offering for each country. I think it's a really useful tool to be able to kind of go and see actually what the impact, what the membership, and what the appeal is before they go and do that.
That's awesome. Charlie, now I know you dodged saying a favorite loyalty program that you may have included in this white paper, but now's the time to call out some of the case studies. There's some really good case studies here. So now we can call out some of those brands.
I know, it's cheeky, isn't it? I think, the case studies are the best bit, actually. And I think that is one of the most interesting things. So as James is talking about there in the loyalty gauge, people often ask me, well, how do I use the data? And I think that for me is how you use the data. So if you're in a market that's struggling with appeal, or you're a program that's struggling with appeal, then actually you should be looking to the markets where they're nailing appeal and looking at the exemplar programs in that sector and going, oh, what can I borrow? What can I use? What inspires me? And that's how I think people should really be using the data, rather than just sort of, I think it's quite easy to copy and paste a chart and stick it in a presentation for a board team and go, oh, people will spend more. But hopefully, I'm really hoping that people will really get into this in year 3 and go, actually, that inspires me, and this is what we should be doing differently. And one of the programs that we really admired, we launched the paper at the Loyalty Summit CXM in Stockholm. So we were obviously going to try and get IKEA Family in the paper, and we did. And IKEA Family, I think, is one of those programs where they've had a huge amount of innovation in the last kind of 2 to 3 years. I think 2 to 3 years ago, we looked at it and gone, well, we love IKEA, but do we really love IKEA family? Whereas now, with the launch of initiatives like rewards and some really kind of cool benefits that they're doing, actually, there's some stuff to be really inspired by an IKEA family. And we worked with Kirsty Chalk, and she actually came out to the summit and presented, and actually she put a great case study in. And one of the things that IKEA does is they talk about stealing with pride. So they pilot things in one market and then they ask the other markets to steal it with pride. And I thought that's actually a really great theme for the paper. And I wish I'd known about that before we write the paper, because I would have put it in the intro as actually what can you steal with pride. And so one of my favorite case studies in the paper is IKEA family and what they're doing. And I really recommend that people check that out. I did sort of flag the Club of Volta program that we worked on with Camillo Courtenay, a really interesting program. You know, it's so complex, so many different retail models across so many different markets in an environment largely of duty free and service stations where people are trying to get in and out as quickly as possible. So they've got to do some really cool stuff to capture people's attention, and they really are. So those are our two deep dive case studies that are in the paper, and we featured our experts and their contact details as well, should anybody want to get in touch. And then what we asked each of our experts to do was to call out within their own market 3 interesting programs. Now, we didn't ask for the biggest programs. We didn't ask for the ones that everybody knows about. We asked them to choose sort of a blend of the most interesting and biggest programs. So you'll have seen Lidl Plus feature a lot. A couple of the experts pulled that out. And then some really interesting ones, you know, in the British market snapshot that I wrote, I called out Pets at Home VIP, which I still think is one of the best programs out there in terms of personalization, bringing your pet to life. The Puppy Club, they're doing some really great stuff. The Pizza Express Club, the way they've really baked their brand DNA into the program, and they've brought tiering in to effectively an IEO sector program, which is really interesting with some really great top tier benefits. And then Benefit Loves, which is a really lovely program that's actually trying to bring that joy of the brand into the loyalty experience through treats and experiences. So those were 3 of my favorites that I called out. But James, obviously you got to work with all the experts on all of them. Which other ones would you call out from the paper that are worth checking out?
Yeah, I love the variation that we get from from asking that question from our experts, and we've got those kind of 12 deep dives in the paper where they not only look at their kind of case studies but also the kind of the key trends that they're seeing within that particular market. So you definitely see that a lot of the same market, a lot of the markets have the same problems, and it's just interesting to see how they are tackling some of those kind of same issues with the programs. I think my favourite case study from the paper, and one which again I've never heard of. I had never heard of it, the program before reading it. But Kristin from Norway, our Norwegian expert, spoke about the SATS loyalty program, and SATS is a kind of gym chain out there. But I just thought it was a really, really simple program whereby it's tiered and it aims to reward gym goers for kind of consistent attendance. So the more you go, the more you work out, the more kind of rewards and perks you get, and it's all aimed around kind of trying to kind of encourage a community and just reward those kind of positive behaviours as well. So I just thought it was a very, very simple way of doing both of those things in a really nice kind of format, which actually helps those customers achieve their goal of getting fitter and being rewarded for that.
So I do want to ask you the question that's not always easy to answer, but I know as the listeners, loyalty professionals are going to want to hear, because we all have the bad days and we're all working in an industry. You just mentioned, James, they're facing some similar problems. What kind of problems were they calling out? What were they seeing in these programs that I'm sure a lot of people listening would share?
I think there's for loyalty marketers, especially at the moment, it's keeping people engaged and retained with the fact that we have such high uptake of loyalty programs kind of across Europe and in each country. There is so much choice. I mean, Charlie mentioned that data point in the UK, looking at the fact that actually UK, the average loyalty program membership for a British person is 6 different programs. And it's a challenge that I think everyone is seeing, is actually how do you stand out? How do you become the program that you go to first when there's so much choice? So I think there is certainly a need to kind of differentiate yourself, and I think that's something which kind of came up a few times. And also just responding to the economic climate, we can see actually people have been using programs to help support themselves when things have been a little bit tight, and it's something that programs are definitely trying to help their customers with. And yeah, there's plenty of the same challenges, I think, kind of popping up in the different kind of case studies and deep dives that we saw.
Yeah. And I think another one that comes out when we spoke to the experts on the kind of the community calls is about budget. So a constant challenge here. So as James is talking, usage is higher than ever. So it's really hard to give valuable, meaningful rewards when, rates are so high. But what we're also seeing is a real squeeze on marketing budgets kind of across the board. And obviously loyalty is one of the areas where there is a sort of direct attribution of how am I rewarding people. So the number of briefs that we have in at the moment, which are how can I create a more meaningful connection with my consumer, but at half the budget? I think is a real challenge for loyalty marketers everywhere, as it is for all marketing disciplines and actually kind of everyone at the moment, I think. So I think that's another big challenge that's coming through. But that real kind of drive to create that emotional connection, but not perhaps having the same level of budget that we would have seen 3 to 4 years ago to be able to do it for everyone.
If you were gambling people and you were running Understanding Loyalty Europe 4.0, because we're doing 3.0 right now, what are your predictions? What do you think we're going to see next round? And I know you're just releasing right now, but what would you predict for next year?
What do you reckon? I reckon we are gonna see a continued increase in membership because of the explosion of loyalty programs. I think the drive for first party data and zero party data across the board in Europe at the moment means that pretty much everyone who hasn't got a loyalty program is trying to get a version of it. We've seen this a lot, and I think it's very rare that a loyalty program of some version is not a good solution for that. So I think we're going to see a continued increase in membership. I think appeal's going to flatline because I think of this tension that we have between budget and desire for rewards. So I think they're going to go, yeah, these programs are great, but what we've seen in the last 3 years has been quite a meteoric rise in appeal of program. We've seen some big differentiation, some big rises. Joyalty is one of the big trends that people talk about. The programs are getting so much better because of gamification. They're really understanding, but I think we're going to see a flat line. And then I'm hoping the impact will increase because the analytics is getting so much smarter and programs are being able to target the right kind of behaviors. Like we're seeing some really lovely specific segmented, micro segmented, personalized kind of approaches to actually get the right people to do the right kind of more valuable behavior rather than that one size fits all that perhaps we've been a bit hamstrung by the technology. So that would be my hope. What about you, James? What do you reckon? Did you agree, or do you reckon that's gonna?
Yeah, I agree. I think membership's a really interesting one. We've had, especially in the UK market, we've had things like member pricing kind of come in recently, which has just really, really aggressively increased that kind of membership, especially in the kind of grocery industry. So really intrigued to see what kind of comes next and what impact that has. I don't know if we're going to see quite as big a jump as we will do in membership kind of next time around, but who knows? There's certainly a lot of kind of exciting technology coming in within loyalty programs at the moment. So we'll wait and find out.
And what are you working on next? Am I just predicting the 4.0 version, or have you got something else up your sleeve that you're going to start to release? What's going on next?
Well, we do, as we said, we do the 2 series of white papers. So we do the Understanding Loyalty in Europe series, which is really great. And every year we're trying to build that community of experts. It's getting bigger and bigger every year, actually. So we've only printed digital copies this year because of sustainability concerns. There's a few paper copies kicking around, but not many. So I think we're up to 12 markets now in detail. And obviously there's 24. So my ambition is to get all 24 done. So if you're listening to this and you're an expert in a loyalty market, one of the 24 that we haven't featured, please get in touch. We'd love to feature you in the next papers. And I promise it's a really interesting and really fun sort of process that we put together. And then what we also do in the British market is we alternate between a promotions specialism paper and a loyalty specialism, particularly in the British market. So this year we are focusing on understanding what the British people really love about loyalty and actually, promotions, and actually what's going to really inspire them. We've got some brilliant experts that we're pulling in. We're working with the IPM, the Institute of Promotional Marketing. So that's going to be our focus in 2025. And then we'll do the British loyalty paper in 2026 again. So a kind of ongoing series that enables us to really build that big industry view. And then we might do some other stuff as well, actually. Who knows? We'll wait and see.
Oh, well, knowing you probably will. There'll be something we don't expect, but it'll be awesome.
Try and do something new every year.
Well, back to James's point and his favourite book. That's the theme, right?
Yeah.
How can listeners access this paper? How do we get a hold of it when it's available?
I think hopefully we'll share the link within the description. But you can also download a kind of copy at mando.co.uk. You can have if you click on there, you can also see all of our other kind of recent loyalty papers, the British one which Charlie mentioned, and some of the previous versions of the promo paper as well. So they're all available at the website there. So just download from there.
Awesome. And Charlie, you did mention as well, people can reach out if they've got further questions or want to get involved. Definitely reach out as well.
Yeah, do. I mean, James and I are very easy to find on LinkedIn or on the Mando website. Yeah, please get in touch. We'd love to answer your questions. Love to share the paper. Love to build the case studies. And love to hear any new ideas you've got.
Oh, thank you both so much. Very exciting. I'm super glad that I got a pre-read, so thank you for the privilege. And looking forward to seeing what happens over the next 12 months.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much.